I mean, they're still in the growing process, so it'll be interesting to see, kind of how
where it goes.
kind of where they go. Yeah, yeah.
Right.
But yeah, so that's been interesting too. We've messed around with Cockroach a little bit.
Okay,
Just
very
trying
cool.
to see what that can do.
Then you said two, so is the other one?
The other one that we're seeing is an uptick in like graph database.
From DataStax, this is the Distributed Data Show.
Hi everyone, I'm here with Aaron Ploetz. We're going to be talking about some of the trends and shifts in the NoSQL world. So, thank you for coming.
Oh, of course, Eric. Yeah, pleasure to be here.
Yeah, so you've actually been in the NoSQL world for quite a while now, kind of.
A bit, yeah.
Yeah, pioneering some of the things and.
Yeah, my first real introduction to it was when I was on the Cassandra team at Grainger. Well, actually, back up a little bit there. I was on the web development team for one of their specialty brands, and our director came by and said, "Hey, you do a lot of the database stuff here, so I'm going to move you to a team called Cassandra." I'm like, "Oh, okay. Is that like Mongo?"
Oh,
Literally,
yeah,
that was the first thing I said. So,
well, you've come a long way since
yeah,
then.
So long story short, I ended up learning how to support this environment where we had Cassandra 0.8 running in production. Actually, that was what we had then. And I learned on that for a couple of years, and it was around that time too that I got my start in Stack Overflow. Basically, it was a competition between me and two of my other buddies I used to work with, Robert and Paul, and we tried to see who could rack up the most rep before Christmas that year, and I just never stopped doing it.
And so now you're actually the top Cassandra questions answered on the board at this point.
Right.
Yeah.
That's
How long
yeah.
is that? How long has that been the case?
It's been like 2 years now that since I passed Jonathan. So yeah,
that's impressive.
Yeah, that was hard to do. I mean, he has a lot of questions that he's answered that have been out there for forever.
Right.
That just keep getting rep. I mean, so it was hard to catch up to him. But
that's awesome.
yeah, perseverance, right?
For sure.
Yeah.
So kind of given this world and everything that you've been in, you're now working at Target as
Yes.
what is the title?
I'm the engineering lead for the NoSQL team.
Okay, so you manage all NoSQL basically for Target, right?
That's right. That's all the managed NoSQL services. That's right. Target actually found me at a startup I was working at in Wisconsin called AccuLynx, which builds like CRMs for like specially trade contractors like roofers and guys who do siding and so they can like manage their jobs and their customers, things like that. And they had a product integration on the back end that I used Cassandra to help kind of build out.
Gotcha.
And so Target brought me in as kind of a Cassandra SME, for lack of a better word, to kind of help out with some issues that some of their dev teams were seeing.
Yeah.
And so I did a lot of like embedding myself with those teams and really doing a lot of like coaching on, hey, this is how Cassandra works. This is how your code should work when you're trying to pull data back or trying to write data to it. And and it just kind of grew from there where they're like, hey, why don't you run all of NoSQL? I'm like, oh, well, okay.
Right. It's all the same thing, right?
Right,
Yeah.
it's all the same thing.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's kind of how we ended up where we are today.
Right.
So.
Well, very cool. So I guess being in kind of that unique position where you're actually managing a lot of different infrastructure, what are some of the trends you've seen over the last couple of years? I mean, there's been a lot of shift, right? There used to be like, 200 plus NoSQL database contenders, and now there's like, a handful. There's, I think, 2 top ones or something along those lines. It's
it's funny. I was just looking at the DB Engines ranking today, and I noticed that Mongo is all the way up to number 4.
Yeah.
And sadly, Cassandra got bumped from the list. We're at 11.
Yeah.
We got bumped out of the top 10. So hopefully we can bring that back up. With our dev teams at Target, I have noticed like Mongo is our fastest growing managed service that we have. I mean, we have people using Mongo a lot. And if I can quote Patrick, it's because it's like crack. They get them started and it's so easy, and they can build something out in Mongo really easily. But they really need that extra help when it comes to like getting something that's, something that scales, something that's larger,
robust. Yeah.
And that's when we take more of a consulting approach, where we'll kind of talk to the dev teams like about what their app is supposed to do, kind of how their queries work, how they expect their consistency to work.
Right.
And it's really a matter of like size, consistency, and expected performance that really helps us kind of figure out which is the best one for
What's the
them.
best solution?
And that's the thing is that with the way that we've done picked our NoSQL products at Target, it's like each fills a specific gap, if you will. It's like if you take the CAP theorem. It's like each of them has its own little like place. As you go around the triangle of the CAP theorem as to kind of how it handles things like consistency and availability, and even like partition tolerance a little differently.
Yeah, absolutely.
So we do have a fairly strong Mongo presence, but overall size-wise, definitely Cassandra is our top. We have 1,100 nodes running in prod. So
that's pretty impressive.
It's pretty crazy.
And if that goes down, that's all on you, right?
Well, I have help. I have 3-4 other people onshore helping me out, and then we have a team in Bangalore as well that helps us out.
Oh, wonderful. Awesome.
So, and they do a great job too.
So like again, with NoSQL, obviously that was a complete shift from the SQL standard. Have you seen any big kind of further shifts from the SQL standard in recent years?
Well, 2 actually. One is that kind of the I don't know what they're called. Are they called like the new SQLs, the Yugabytes, the FaunaDBs, the spanners?
Yeah, I'm not sure what the term is for them.
Yeah, Cockroach is like the open source offshoot-ish kind of spanner. I've seen those take a bit of an uptick. Anytime you get somebody, I mentioned CAP theorem, but anytime you have a product that comes out and says, oh, hey, well, we can thwart CAP theorem, you can forget about it because we do this, this, and this, and we can guarantee consistency and tolerance and availability, and they have some unique ways that they're doing it.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean those types of technologies are game changing. I mean they're still in the growing process, so it'll be interesting to see kind of how
where it goes,
kind of where they go. Yeah, but so that's been interesting too. We've messed around with Cockroach a little bit.
Okay, very
just trying
cool.
to see what that can do.
Then you said 2, so is the other one?
The other one that we're seeing is an uptick in like graph database technologies.
Yeah.
So that's where we've been doing a lot of work. We have a Neo4j footprint at Target. It's I wouldn't say it's too big, but when we get teams that really again want to be able to scale, that's where Neo kind of has its its restrictions, for lack of a better word.
Yeah, it's single instance style.
Right. Neo4j community is that single instance, absolutely. And you can cluster out, if you have the enterprise license, of course. So since that's a little pricey, we do try and limit that. So one thing that we're looking at is building out an open source stack for that, and that's where last month I presented here on Janus Graph and talking a little about what we've done with that, and with Cassandra as a backend, and then Elasticsearch for indexing, and then running our queries through like Gremlin Tinkerpop, and
kind of building up your whole own stack there to compete with the big boys.
It's kind of our own little DSE, but not really.
Yeah, right. Well, actually, interestingly enough, Janus, I believe Janus and DSE Graph are both kind of cousins. Their predecessor was Titan, right?
Their predecessor was Titan.
So that's kind of a weird parallel there. But you've actually done a lot of book writing too, haven't you?
Last year I wrote 2 books actually. I didn't do much else last year other than work. So.
Yeah. So we're both on Cassandra, or we're some more broad than that?
In a way. The Pack Publishing reached out to me about the first one, and they said, "Hey, we're doing a project called 7 NoSQL databases in a week." And I said, "Oh, well, you probably want me to write the chapter on Cassandra." And they're like, "Yes, and the chapters on Redis and Neo4j." And I'm like, okay, well, Redis I can do, but I'm not really as good at Neo4j as I am Cassandra. And that's where they're like, well, it says you manage them on your LinkedIn profile. And that's where I'm like, yeah, it does say that on my LinkedIn profile. So I'm like, okay, all right. And I kind of buckled down and did the research on it and figured out how to write a good intro chapter for Neo4j. And that was really the beginning of my graph journey, if you want to call it that.
Very cool, yeah. And then the other one was just Cassandra.
I wrote the 3rd edition of Mastering Cassandra.
Very cool.
So
very cool.
That was that was the rest of the year.
Right.
The 7 NoSQL databases in a week published this time last year, and then I spent the rest of the year working on the Mastering Cassandra book. And they wanted to have it out in September, and I was just uber busy and I couldn't get to it as quick as I wanted. So I actually brought in a friend of mine, a coworker, Teja Malapati. He's one of our lead engineers over in Bangalore for Target. And he wrote the chapters on Spark integration and monitoring that are in that book. So I brought him along to help me. So, Teja, if you're seeing this, thank you, bud.
Awesome. Well, very cool. Well, I really appreciate you coming out and talking with us. This has been really fantastic. It's always cool to talk to someone who's got so much street cred in the community. So, kind of a treat for me.
Thank you for having me.
All right, so you've got some tremendous resources to offer, obviously, in your books. Where can people find those?
They're for sale out there on Pack Publishing, Amazon, of course. That's
that's
the
a
other
given,
big one.
right?
Yeah. And I actually found them both in the Microsoft store the other day.
Oh.
I was really taken aback by that. I didn't know they sold books.
Yeah.
Who knew, right?
Very cool.
Anyway, but for people starting out, the 7 NoSQL databases one, that's at a very beginner level. But also, what I tell my engineers too is when they're starting out with Cassandra is to check out DataStax Academy, because that's really, you guys really do have a good set of tools there for bringing new people along and kind of introducing them to the tech. And I know that we've utilized that a lot.
Yeah, so, awesome. Well, appreciate that.
I've gotten to say, one of our engineers last summer, she's like, oh, hey, look, I did this and I got my certificate. And I looked at it and I'm like, oh, it's signed by Patrick McFadden. I know that guy. She's like, what?
He's a spiky-haired guy in the video,
funny,
right? Yeah. That's awesome.
Yeah, and that's something I've kind of told my engineers too, is that what you're going to find when you work with this stuff is that Cassandra's a really small, tight-knit community. I mean, we all kind of know each other, and it's really cool to do these get-togethers and get to see everyone and have a beer or two.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, awesome. Well, again, thank you for coming. This is real treat. So.
All right. Hey, thanks for having me.
Awesome.